Welcome to Keep What You Earn, your judgment and jargon-free zone for entrepreneurs of all levels. Get ready to learn how to scale your business, save money in taxes, and create a business that grows your wealth. If it feels like the financial side of business is like eating your vegetables, well then think of this podcast as the ranch dressing to make the process a little more enjoyable. My name is Shannon. I'm a CPA and business owner on a mission to simplify money and empower others through knowledge. I hope this episode inspires you to take action, but remember that the information we share is for educational purposes only and is not individual tax advice. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start the show. In recent years, we've seen a rise in the number of online businesses popping up, and thus the number of businesses offering some type of digital product. Now, offering a digital product is a lot easier than offering a physical product. If you think about it, digital products like ebooks, courses, or just resources online, even if they infuse a service in it like coaching, are way easier to offer mechanically than, say, a physical product. And I know my physical product business owners would agree with me. And that when it comes to offering a physical product, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of sourcing. There's a lot of lead times. There's a lot of supply chain issues. But when it comes to offering a digital product, it's a lot easier. It's as simple as create it, put it out there, market it, and sell it. And I know it's not as easy as all those steps, and it's actually really challenging. But when it comes to fulfillment, it is a bit easier. And with that comes the increase in the number of businesses that are offering some type of digital product, even if their core offer is a core service or a product. And digital products are really interesting because they're a relatively new concept to our government entities and to tax agencies. So I want to kind of explain how tax agencies work in a sense and how the sales of digital products can affect you when it comes to your business and taxes. Now, again, as I always disclaim in this show, it's not individual tax advice. There are unique aspects, unique nuances to everybody and to every business. But I want to make you aware of things like this because it could affect you and you may not be aware of it. So when it comes to digital products, I want you to understand that our tax agencies, for the most part, our government overall in the United States, is a bit behind when it comes to understanding how people are making money. Case in point, there's this code called the NAICS code, NAICS. Don't ask me to spell out every piece of the acronym, but it's like a North American industry code, okay? And what this does is it tells the IRS or whoever the agency is, what type of industry you're in, what type of service you provide or product you provide. And I will say this is a quite outdated list of options, down to a lot of industrial type work, but not very much digital work. There are actually not many services in there. There's a lot of industrial services, a lot of like mining, manufacturing operations, but like not much in consulting. There's really like one code for consulting and like one code for accounting. And there really isn't much specificity there. And why I bring this up is with how old school this system is, they really haven't accounted for a specific treatment of digital products. So what's happening is states individually are deciding how certain things are taxed from a sales tax standpoint when it comes to digital products and how things should be treated. So when we look at digital products and we look at selling them online, there's a really important thing I want you to understand. And we're going to focus mostly on sales tax today, which sales tax is simply a state-imposed tax that trickles down to your customer. So the customer pays it, but you collect it from the customer as a part of their invoice or a part of their receipt. And then you pay those taxes to the state on a monthly, quarterly, sometimes annual basis. And your responsibility is simply to be a parking lot for that sales tax because the customer is going to pay it and then you pass it along to the government entity. So it is really simple. It's just operationally kind of annoying. And it shouldn't cost you anything really besides the cost to actually file those items and the time it takes to file and remit and pay the sales tax. So that being said, let's talk about digital products and the impact of sales tax. So every state is different, which is really, really annoying. Every state is different when it comes to whether or not digital products are subject to sales tax. There's a lot of give and take on this because some states will interpret certain products and services to be taxable from a sales tax perspective, and some won't. And for the most part, if I had to paint with a broad brush, I would say For the most part, most states do not tax services, but they do tax products. So if you're selling a physical product, there's a high level of likelihood that you have some type of sales tax associated with that product that you should be collecting and remitting. If you sell a digital product, however, there are some states where they would not characterize that similar to a physical product and they wouldn't charge sales tax. Or it might be conditional. Like if the digital product is, a side dish to a core service, it's not taxable. But if it's the main offer and there's no interaction with you as the seller, like I always use the example, if you remember, God, I'm aging myself, but Richard Simmons, when he used to teach like Sweatin' to the Oldies, I remember my mom having a VHS tape of his dancing, of his like fitness classes, and she would do them in the living room. And I'm like, that is a product, right? Because it's a video of him and you're doing the dancing, but like you own the product and you're never going to go talk to Richard. You're not going to call him up and be like, hey, how do I do this move, right? Whereas if you had some type of program or workout routine with a fitness instructor where they are live training you or have live classes every single week and you can actually interact with them and ask them questions, that might be perceived to be a service. So I bring that up to say, if you're selling digital products and they don't associate with a service, there's a chance they could be taxable. Even if they do associate with a service, there is still a chance they could be taxable based on your state. But if they're not associated, it probably increases the likelihood. But also, you want to be looking at your state's rules around sales tax, because if you should be collecting and remitting those sales taxes and you're not, then there can be certain penalties. There can be, back taxes you may have to pay for the sales. There's all these possibilities of how states can come after you for those unpaid taxes. And it really is your customer's responsibility, as I've mentioned, but it is your responsibility to collect them. And there's a really important thing to note here, which is when it comes to sales tax, especially on digital products, you really want to be mindful of where are you selling your products to? Like, where are your customers located? So if you're wondering, number one, is your product taxable in the states where you're selling it? You have to really look at every state, not just where you are, which is really important. So first look at the state where you're based and decide, hey, where are digital products taxable, and are they taxable in my state where I physically am located? Number two is you want to look where core employees are sitting if you have virtual teams. You also want to be looking at where you house any inventory or things like that if you do sell a product. So you want to be looking at these different states where you have what's called nexus, or a big footprint for your business where you're located. Next, you want to be looking at where do you sell these products? So who is on the receiving end of buying these digital products? And if you are selling, let's just say I live in Connecticut and I sell a lot of my product to folks in California, coincidentally, right? Well, it's possible that I can have what's called nexus in California. And it's possible that I need to be collecting sales taxes in California for the sales I make there. And I need to be remitting them to the state of California because they consider me to have enough of a footprint in that state to have to enroll with them and register with them and pay them. And here's how this works. There was this rule that came out several years ago. It's called South Dakota versus Wayfair, AKA the Wayfair rule, AKA the Wayfair decision. And what this did was it really shook things up on how we tax e-commerce. Because if you think about it, old school, we used to have these brick and mortar businesses where you would go to a store, you'd buy something, and you were in the same state when you bought it because you were physically there. You bought it from an actual store. You actually went to the store, bought the thing, took it home, right? This is like way back in the day. But now we go on Amazon, we go on marketplaces, we go on websites, we go on, online, anywhere, and we purchase something and it gets sent to our house. So the question that came up in this ruling was, well, where is the sale taking place? Is it taking place in the state where it's being fulfilled? Is it taking place in the state where the customer is purchasing from? Where is the state that the jurisdiction would fall under? Because if you think about it, if there was no state, then look how many state taxes they wouldn't be collecting. So it's kind of this tug of war and this kind of, quite frankly, money grab among the states to say, it's in the state where it's sold, or it's in the state where the customer is. And they went back and forth. And it turns out that for the most part, you want to be looking at the state where your customer is based and looking at, hey, how much did I sell to that particular state? How many of my customers were there and how much did I sell? And every state also, to add more complexity to this, every state also has a different threshold with how much it matters, how much you sell to that state. So let's just say, for example, that you're selling to a particular state that has a $100,000 threshold before you hit nexus. All that is a $100,000 threshold before you have to collect and remit sales tax, which means you have to sell $100,000 worth of products or services there if they're taxable, which again is the first question. Is it taxable there? The second question is, have you sold enough of it to trip that threshold in that state where now you have to collect and remit sales tax? So it's actually super confusing and super detailed. It's like a web of figuring this out. But fret not, because there are resources out there that we love to use that are there to help you. One of them is TaxJar, which we use for our clients and we absolutely love. Another is Avalara. I'll link both of them in the show notes for you to check them out. Now, TaxJar and Avalara, I love TaxJar because I love their YouTube videos. So definitely check them out if you want to learn more about sales tax. But you go into a tool like TaxJar and they will track, they will plug into your Shopify, plug into your website, your Amazon, whatever it is, or you can upload files and they'll analyze how much have you sold in each particular state, and they'll tell you when you're approaching that threshold so that you can get ready and register in those states. So there is a ton of responsibility here when it comes to tracking how much you're selling. And it's really important to understand whether or not you're subject to this. And if you're not, here's the other thing. If this is all like, yeah, I sell digital products, but I've already stopped at step one, Shan, because it's not taxable in my state. Okay, but you still have to concern yourself with how much am I selling to other states and is it taxable there? But also you have to be thinking about, well, how can I prove, or can I get an exemption certificate that shows that it's not a problem for me, or that I'm not subject to sales tax in my state? You want to make sure that you're concluding that really clearly, ideally with something called an exemption certificate, which basically is a get out of jail free card where you can say, hey, the state already told me that I'm exempt from these. I don't have to be collecting and remitting these. It's always good to have that on hand. It's just kind of a permission slip, So when it comes to selling digital products, I want you to understand that it's very easy to sell them. Don't get me wrong, but it can be very confusing to navigate the sales tax rules if you're selling state to state, because even though it's really easy to online, it is really tricky from a tax standpoint. So I would encourage you, if you're selling across state lines online, any type of digital product or even services or anything, make sure you're researching the sales tax laws to make sure you're in compliance, and work with your tax professional to make sure that you've got all your, I's dotted and T's crossed when it comes to compliance. And if you have any doubts, feel free to work with the states. Let them know. Say, hey, I think I need to be collecting and remitting. Can you confirm that with me? Can we work together to figure out how to get this implemented for my business? They're in the best interest of helping you. So don't worry about getting in trouble. Just worry about doing things the right way and educating yourself on what your requirements are. Okay, real talk. Our business can really mess with our emotions and our mindset. Am I right? One day we feel like we're unstoppable, like we could run through a wall, and then the next we want to burn it all down and start from scratch. Hey, I'm with you. A lot of this has to do with how we approach our money. And if you need a quick jolt of mindset habits for the next 5 days to help you reboot and recalibrate, check out my 5-day financial mindset refresh delivered straight to your email. Click the link in the show notes to sign up right now. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and review on your podcast platform. This small action goes a long way for podcasters to get our message heard by more business owners just like you. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to information about our guests and ways to get in touch with me. We'll see you on the next episode.